Shalom, shalom, shalom. One, two. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. All praises and power go to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Shema Sekel Shai. For surely his mercy endure forever. Now we got the sound sounding crisp, sounding perfect, as it should, as it's expected. So I want to say all praise to the Most High. We're in a few seconds. We're about to rise and face the east with the blowing of the shofar. We're about to begin the prayer. Hallelujah. All praises, all praises. With the sounding of the trumpet, we're going to rise and face the east. With the blowing of the trumpet, we're going to rise and face east and begin the prayers. Enter into this Friday history class, this Shabbat in peace. All praise the Most High. The blowing of the trumpet. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The Shabbat day blessings, read in the Lashon Kodash, the ancient Hebrew. Repeat after me. In the Hebrew only. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, that give us the Shabbat in peace. Brakthei Yahweh, Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Ha'u Nathol Ha-Shabbat, Ba-Shalom. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, that give us the law. Brakthei Yahweh, Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Ha'u Nathol Ha-Thorah. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, that gives the light to see. Brakthei Yahweh, Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Ha'u Nathol Ha'awor Laka'ah. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, that gives the ram's horn to call the people. Brakthei Yahweh, Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Ha'u Nathol Ha'awor Ha'ayol Koran Laka'ah Ha'aim. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, that gives the olive oil to anoint Israel. Brakthei Yahweh, Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Ha'u Nathol Ha'shaman Zayaf Lamashak Yasha'ala. Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai, Thawada Thamyad Aman. All praises, all praises, all praises. With the reading of Psalms 121 in English to bless the Shabbat day. The book of Psalms, chapter 121, verse 1. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from Yahweh, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Yahweh is thy keeper. Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Yahweh shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. Yahweh shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Bahashem Amasek Yahweh Shai, Thawada Thamyad Aman. Hallelujah, hallelujah. All praise and power goes to the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'ashem Asek Yahweh Shai. Now we're going to read the Aron Palau in the Lashon Kodash, the Lord's Prayer in the ancient Hebrew. Repeat after me only in the Hebrew. The Aron Palau, Lord's Prayer. Abanawa, Sheba Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malak Wafka, Thaba'a, Ratazaika, Haya, Aisha, Barataza, Hawa, Haya, Vashamayam, Nathalanawa, Lakam, Kayawam, Wasalak Nawa, Kabuwafya Nawa, Kasalak Nawa, Kabuwafya Nawa, Wala'a, Fabia Nawa, Bansayawan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwaf, Wa'ala, Wahafparaf, Laiwalunyam, Bahashem, Amasyaka Hawashai, Thawara, Thamyad, Aman. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The book of St. Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9. The reading of the Lord's Prayer in English. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Salakia. The book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. For forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father also forgive you. But forgive men not their trespasses, now will your Father forgive your trespasses. Abanaya Hauba Shema Sekawashai, Thawada, Thamyad, Aman. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I want to say all praise and power go to the Most High God, Yahweh, for showing his mercy endure forever. We thank you, O Most High God, for having mercy upon us in these last days, sending forth thy righteous Holy Spirit unto the 12 tribes of Israel, thy holy people. I pray unto you how you continue to do thy will in these last days, bringing thy people together, bringing that spirit of remembrance, that spirit of Zakar, O Yahweh, that spirit of remembrance that we will continue to remember who we are and what we ought to do in these last days. I pray unto you how you send forth a righteous spirit unto all the brothers and sisters, that spirit of healing, that spirit of protection, O Yahweh, to heal our people and to protect our people in these last days. And lastly, I pray unto Yahweh, you send that righteous spirit of vengeance, O Yahweh, that evil spirit, all the evil, grievous spirits you have in your armory, O Yahweh, I pray unto Yahweh, you send them unto our enemies, unto every goddamn nation on this earth. I pray unto Yahweh, you send these evil spirits toward them, to destroy them, O Yahweh, and to uplift thy people, O Yahweh, and put them in a rightful place on this earth, ruling this earth under our King, Amasya Kahawashai. And with that, I say, Amna Yahweh Shema Sekahawashai, Thawada, Thamyad, Aman.
Aman, aman.
For some reason, it's acting up, but they can hear as clear as day.
Okay,
So it's all good, though. Praises. All praises, all praises, all praises. Hallelujah. For surely the Most High God's mercy endureth forever. You know who I am. If you don't know, maybe it's the first time you're coming to the Eli Zion's page. I'm Captain Priest Montezak of LOZ. And my beloved brother sitting next to me is
Officer Malachi of DLOZ.
all praises. So where we left off last Friday class, we was finishing the book of First Maccabees, right? We was finishing the book of First Maccabees, and there were some questions I've seen. I don't want to say it was last class, but maybe it was before, and it was the question of where do we go from here? Well, you have to understand, right? And this is something that got me interested into the history of our people, right? What got me interested on the path of going into the history of our people is thinking to myself, like, all right, all praises. Years ago, I was coming up as a young officer at LOZ, and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, all praises. All right, I got some precepts down. I got a little bit of understanding, all praises. And then I started thinking to myself, like, damn. I was already interested in history, don't get me wrong, but I was thinking to myself, like, damn, there's a lot to learn. When brothers start bringing out things about the Dark Ages, start bringing about the Black icons of Europe and so on and so forth, and all this different history, left, right, third, you start realizing there's a lot of information, historical information, we just don't know, right? And there was a thing I said. I was like, it's like we're like 2,000 years late. We're 2,000 years late on information, right? So everything beyond this point is history. Everything is history, right? So, once we had finished Maccabees, I had made a promise that we'll go into a topic, right? We'll go into a small topic before we transfer into the New Testament, right? And that small topic deals with how is it that we leave off in Maccabees, right? Mind you, less than 200 years before you enter into the New Testament, we leave off in Maccabees with the Hasmonean dynasty, right? Who in the chat? I see a couple of people. I see 10 people in the chat. Sometimes it says 10. It could be 20. I know the live streaming of YouTube, they cut it in half. They can't number everyone who's coming in and leaving out. So whatever number you have there is present, it's usually more. It's like more than that. So if it's 50, it's 100, right? If it's 10, it's 20. So for the people that's on the live stream right now, who can give me, I want to see who's historian in the chat, who can tell me what is the Hasmonean dynasty? I'm messing with that coconut water, boy. I ain't messing with your defiled bread. You understand? I'm trying to get down with that coconut water, that electrolytes. You understand? Because understanding what the Hasmonean dynasty plays a part with understanding the book of Maccabees. What's going on there? That's the clue. Who can tell me what the Hasmonean dynasty is before we continue? Let's see who can answer. I see Dawn Israel, right? I see my sister Mariah. All right, all praise to the Most High. Who can tell me what is the Hasmonean dynasty in the Bible? What is the Hasmonean dynasty? Let's see who's going to get that. Let's see who's going to be able to answer that question. What is the Hasmonean dynasty? Or if maybe you heard it before, maybe you have an answer. Don't be scared. What is that? What is the Hasmonean dynasty? Maybe you heard it before, maybe you didn't. But this is a class, right? And if we come here, we have to come here to learn, right? We're not going to always have the answer, right? So don't be one of those Israelites like that. I don't got the answer, so let me not say nothing. Israel, man. That's how Israel be. I'll let my brother have it. You got it? Hasmonean dynasty?
So, to my knowledge, the Hasmonean dynasty is the lineage after David, correct?
What? You're confusing it with another dynasty. I got you. The name of that one. The lineage of everyone after David that ruled on the throne, or at least everyone who descends from David, is called the Davidic dynasty. Oh, Davidic. All right. A lot of times we relate dynasties to like a ruling family, all of those who is in position of power, or all those who rules after the king, right? The prince, right? The prince becomes the king, and then he passes throne on to the next prince, right? And then going on and on and on, then you call that a dynasty. But really, a dynasty is just a family. You understand? A dynasty is just a family. So what is the Hasmonean dynasty? The Hasmonean dynasty is the family of Judas Maccabeus, including his father, Matthias, his brothers, Eleazar, John Gaddy, Simon Thassi, and Jonathan, right? All of these men, their whole family is called the Hasmoneans, right? Because the name goes back to Matthias' father, Asmonean, right? That's where you get the term from. Sometimes you may hear Israelites say, man, those Maccabees are powerful. Or something like, man, those Maccabees, man, this, that, and the third, like a plural thing. But in all actuality, only one of them was ever called Maccabee. The term Maccabee was never extended to all the rest of the brothers or to anyone else. If you want to learn about the revolt that took place, you have to search up the Maccabean revolt. It's only called that because Judas Maccabeus was the one who was left in charge, and he was the one leading the revolt. That's why it's called after his name. But if you want to know about the family, it's called the Hasmonean family. So now the question is, why did I bring up the Hasmonean family, right? So we left off in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 16. We finished the chapter, and it leaves us off with a cliffhanger, right? What's the cliffhanger? Let's look at it. First Maccabees, chapter 16. Where's my? You see my bag? It's a brown bag. You see it? It's all good. Go ahead. It's all right. I'll look at it right here because I have my apocrypha in it. But it's all good. 16. Hold on. The last couple verses. First Maccabees chapter 16, verse. You can start from. You know what? You can start verse 20.
It's the book of Maccabees. This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 16 and verse 20.
Actually, start from verse 14. Let's get a context on what was going on. And why did we leave off with a cliffhanger when we was reading Maccabees? All right? Go ahead.
Now Simon was visiting the cities that were in the country, and taking care of the good offering of them, that at which time he came down himself to Jericho with his sons, Matthias and Judas, in the 167th year, in the 11th month, called Sabbat, where the son of Abubas, receiving then deceitfully into a little hold called Docus, which he had built, made a great banquet. Howbeit, he had hid men there.
Right. So like we were just speaking of, dynasty isn't just related to a royal family, right? And all those who reigned after the king. It literally just means it's just a family, right? This is a dynasty I'm establishing. Anyone can have a dynasty, right? But in the royalty sense, in an official royalty sense, the Hasmonean dynasty began with Simon Fassi, right? Because the revolt kicks off, right? Matthias, who starts the revolt, he dies. He passed the position of power to Judas Maccabeus. He's in charge, the Maccabean revolt, right? Maccabees dies in wars. Eleazar dies in war, right? Power gets passed to Jonathan. Jonathan's in charge. Jonathan becomes high priest, right? Jonathan makes Israel independent. Now power gets, once Jonathan gets kidnapped, then he gets killed, then power passes on to Simon. Now this is when it gets interesting, because once power was in Simon's hands, he lived at least long enough for power to pass from his hands to not another brother, but to his son. Now we have two rulers who reigned, father, then son. Then begins a royal dynasty, right? Moving onward, Simon Fassi. Because when Simon died, his brother, John Gaddy, he died as well, right? So let's go ahead and read.
Verse 16. So when Simon and his sons had drunk largely, Ptolemy and his men rose up and took their weapons and came upon Simon into the banqueting place.
So small detail I left off. So Jonathan becomes high priest. He passed the power to Simon. But at that time, Israel is independent from the Seleucid Empire. So this is what puts Simon in a very interesting position, right? Because he doesn't just become high priest after his brother Jonathan. He becomes what you see in the scriptures. You're going to see it calls him the prince, right? First, it starts off with him being considered the prince of Israel, right? Which means he's in charge of the government and also in charge of the spiritual affairs of Israel. Then this position of power gets passed on to his son, John Hyrcanus. And it's with John Hyrcanus that he becomes officially king. He becomes known as king of Israel. Because he begins to establish this idea that, yes, we are independent. So he begins to mint coins, right? Which I'm going to put on the screen. He begins to mint coins, right? Minting coins for a country, it's basically saying we are on our own. We are independent. No one represents us. No one has their hand on our neck. We represent ourselves. And he does this by minting coins and putting his own name on the coin, right? So I'm going to put the coins on the screen. Keep reading.
And came upon Simon into the banqueting place, and slew him, and his 2 sons, and certain of his servants. Verse 17, in which doing he committed a great treachery, and recompensed evil for good. Then Ptolemy wrote these things, and sent to the king, that he should send him in hosts to aid him, and would deliver him the country and cities. He sent others also to Gaza.
Where is this not working? Hold on 1 second. Slakia, before you continue. For some reason, I'm trying to put this thing on the screen. It's not working. Okay, there you go. For some reason, it wasn't working. Go ahead, continue.
Verse 19. He sent others also to Gaza to kill John, and unto the tribunes he sent letters to come unto him,
Right.
that he might give them silver and gold and rewards. And others he sent to take Jerusalem and the mountain of the temple. Now one had run afar to Gaza, and told John and his father and brethren were slain. An oath he Ptolemy had sent to slay thee also. Hereof, when he heard, he was sore astonished.
What verse you at?
Verse 22.
Okay, go ahead.
Hereof, when he heard, he was sore astonished. So he laid hands on them that were come to destroy him, and slew them, for he knew that they sought to make him away. Verse 23.
All right, they were trying to put an end to the Hasmonean dynasty, but that was not the will of the Lord. The will of the Lord was not, it says, la'ah, and allow this young man to live. Go ahead.
As concerning the rest of the acts of John, and his wars, and worthy deeds which he did, and the building of the walls which he made, and his doings, behold.
Hold on. So we've seen this type of phraseology before, right? Where it says concerning the rest of the acts. We've seen this plenty of times when we're reading Kings and we're reading Chronicles, right? And it's what it does is that at least when Kings and Chronicles does this, these two set of books are these set of scribes are playing off of each other, right? So there's a certain amount of information. If you want to learn more that's read in Kings, you have to go to Chronicles. If you want deeper understanding of what's being talked about in Chronicles, sometimes you have to go back to Kings, right? Because these scribes are playing off of each other. But the thing is, with here in Maccabees, and the problem, and what a lot of people feel this sense of, damn, we were just getting to the good part. There's no continuation. You go to 2 Maccabees, there's no mention, there's no continuation of the life or rulership of John Hyrcanus. And 2 Maccabees just goes into information dealing with, going deeper into information about what you're reading already in 1 Maccabees rather than following that chronological order of events, right? So to learn more about John Hyrcanus and the events that what took place in his life, you have to go and turn to the Josephus, right? The Josephus, Flavius Josephus, a Levite priest, Israelite historian that lived in the 1st century. He was also a witness of the destruction of the temple. He was a turncoat, right? He was a turncoat. That's where he obtains the name Flavius from, right? From a Roman family. He wrote the Josephus. Um, and it's a good book because it's historical, but you have to always also keep in mind that he's writing it with a narrative and he's writing it with an intended audience. And the intended audience he's writing to isn't for Israel. At this moment, Israel is being erased off the earth by these Romans because these wars is taking place in the land. So what this book is being written for is the intended audience is for the Romans, so they can have some type of knowledge or information, and you can kind of understand how valuable this information is when you're erasing these people off the earth, destroying their country and you're killing them all, right? So but it just ended up being the will of the Most High that our history ended up being preserved that way as well. So now we have to turn to the Josephus, but let's read this. Let's finish that first.
Verse 23. As concerning the rest of the acts of John, and his wars, and his worthy deeds which he did, and the building of the walls which he made, and his doings, behold, these are written in the chronicles of his priesthood, from the time he was made high priest after his father.
Mm-hmm. Right, after he was made high priest after his father. So now let's take a look at some of this minted coins. These were the minted coins that he established during his rulership to signify that Israel was independent at this time. That he even put his own name on these coins and was spreading about in Israel. Right? Let's see. See, when you're learning about these coins and the choice of the design, right? The original idea was to put a face, right? The original idea was to put a lion, but then it says in the Josephus, reason why he didn't choose those because he feared for Israel's sense of idolatry, right? He feared us looking at these coins with a man's face on it and Israel becoming simple and falling into idolatry. Exactly. And that's the reason why when you look into a lot of those other older coins, going back to or historical images going backwards, you don't see a face on it. You don't see a man's face. You see a name. You see a name on it. Right? Let me see. Okay, there you go. That's what it says right here. There you go. You can read it real quick for them, just in case they can't see it. You hear me?
Yeah.
So it says Yohanan, but that's Yakanan, John in ancient Hebrew. Yakanan, right? This, just the highlighted.
Yochanan, the high priest, and the council of the Jews, surrounded by reverse, two cornucopias, splayed outward,
And
adorned with ribbons, pomegranate or poppy between the horns.
Between the horns. All right, let's just set up right here. So it's like one of those.
Oh, a cornucopia.
Yeah. Put it on the screen. He said it. He said that thing clear. Perfect. It's like one of those. All right.
That's what's on the cornucopia?
Yeah. Yeah. With a ribbon and pomegranates. But let me see. There was a couple more here. Hold on. Maybe because I press. There you go. That's what a couple more of them is. A couple more of these things. Yep. Let's see. It's easily recognized because the wreath differs from all the appears of our plant. Hebrew inscription reads from left to right. The high priest and the Gadol. High priest. It basically says the same thing. All right, okay, read it. It says right there. It says Yakanan, Ha the Kahan, Ha Gadol, Wa, and it says council. I can't tell where that Hebrew is for council, but Ha is the English is the Hebrew for the, and then it says Yahweh Dam, Yahweh Daya, the Jews. For right here, that's what it says. It says basically the same thing. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to see the design he put on the coins that he had at that time. I mean, and this is also something you can bring out when someone's telling you that ancient Hebrew doesn't exist, or there's no historical sources to prove that Hebrew exists, right? So this is something you could bring out to confound somebody, or better, I should say, to educate someone, right? All right, so we're going to go into the Josephus, and we're going to look into that. Just give me 1 second. Go put some more stuff on the screen.
Cornucopia was a symbolized a bountiful harvest.
Mm-hmm.
It was used as a symbol that Yah is blessing us. So that know that has Hebrew roots.
It's like it.
Cornucopia sign.
Let them say it on the mics so they can hear them.
Just one, yeah. Check.
They can hear you, Cap. They can
Oh.
hear you. It's just I guess there's an issue with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to bring out that the cornucopia is a representation of a bountiful harvest, meaning that Yah is blessing us. So that symbol or that depiction of fruit coming out of the horn of like a basket horn, right, is just a symbolism that we use throughout the years historically with Israel. And I guess another way of avoiding any kind of idolatry, because that's all items that you would harvest. You know what I mean? It's all fruit or vegetables they would have pouring out of a basket, showing that the Most High has been bountiful in blessing us. So that is one of our historical signs, along with the pomegranate and the lily flower, what they call the Freud de Lis. The pomegranate, which later
That's
on
exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, the further lee.
right, and later on the pomegranate was known as the crest of Solomon or the shield of David, the six-pointed star. So all of these are natural events that Israel would use to signify that they was there, like signets, right? That we found that they were not idolatry. There was no idolatry in them. So when someone tells you that the shield is idolatry, they don't know the history of Israel. The shield was actually used so it wouldn't be idolatry.
Absolutely.
For the very purpose of not being idolatry, right? That's why we use.
And people are still claiming it to be idolatry.
We use
Right.
natural animals and natural fruits and vegetables and natural things in our signets so that we would not be accused of idolatry. You know what I mean? And then with simple-minded Jake or simple-minded nations, they try to say that we were dealing with idolatry anyway, right? So the shield of David is not the star of Molech. That's in the sky, right? The shield of David is the pomegranate top. The cornucopia is the bountiful crops. And the Freud de Lis is the lily flower.
All right.
That's on that.
All praises. Give him. All praises. All praises. Hallelujah. That's the elder chief minister. Tribe of Benjamin. Hallelujah. Yeah. You got to break down to Israel. Yeah, I actually want to, because you brought that out, I do want to pull up one verse because, someone's going to say something like, oh, well, like, dang, if I was there, I would have put this, that, and the third. I'll put a face, or so people know Jews are black, or this, and you just don't understand your own people if you come in that line of logic, right? Exactly. All right. Let's read that verse real quick. It's Judges 8:26. 8:26 to 27. You don't really understand your own people, right?
It's the book of Judges, chapter 8 and verse 26. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold,
Mm-hmm.
beside ornaments and collars of purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that were about the camels' necks. And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and
Uh huh.
put in it his city,
All right.
even in Ophrah.
Come
And
on.
all Israel went thither, a whoring after it.
But the
And
ephod, the ephod is a symbol that's supposed to be symbolic for the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Each gem is supposed to show you that Israel holds a precious, or what's the word I'm looking for, Chief? A not precious, a value, hold a value in the eyes of the Lord. That we're precious, we're valuable in the eyes of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Right, precious stones. But yet, even something as simple as that isn't when they're whoring after it. Right? They saw that and said, that must be a God. Right? Because a man who did all this and freed us from oppression was able to do this, and he set that up. Right? Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, this goes again with the again. Israel was into a lot of symbolism because our God is a God of symbolism,
Con.
right? He speaks to us through symbolism.
Con.
So if we're following Yah, we're gonna also deal with symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And Yah refers to us as trees. He refers, he's constantly using nature or the creation, Yah's creation, to refer to things, right? So when the brother put together the ephah for good reasons, just for symbolism's sakes, it wasn't the actual ephah that was on the neck of the high priest. It was like a representation of it. But the people then, when you have a wicked heart, you become carnal, and now you start to worship it.
Right.
It's the same situation we had with the brazen serpent.
Right. 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 Right.
They put the serpent on the stick to show what? That the serpent, that we have power over the serpent. The serpent doesn't have power over us, right? So they put the serpent brazen on the stick, raised it up, and then people did what? They made
Worship
a god
it.
out of it,
Right.
right? It's the same thing they do with Yahweh Shai, right? They make Yahweh Shai into the Most High.
Right. Right. That's a good point.
This is what our people do. They're always trying to find a replacement for the Most High,
Con.
because the Most High doesn't give you an image. Matter of fact, he said, "Make no image, nothing of the sea, of the earth, or of the land, of the air. Don't make an image of me."
Mm-hmm.
But the people need an image, so they would take anything and try to make it his image, try to make him the God. You know what I mean? But Yah, in return, says, "No, I don't have an image, but I have symbolism throughout the whole earth. I'm in everything."
Mm.
The scriptures say, "I'm in everything." He says, "It's all of me."
Right.
Right? I believe that's in the Psalms, right? That all the creation is of me. All comes from me. I'm in everything. So just so the people understand at home watching that these symbolisms, you don't have to run from them. These are not idolatry unless you make it that way.
Right. Right. Right.
You start to look at these things and make more of it than it is, right? But all through our artifacts, and every time you go to, like, you look up the Byzantine Empire, you see all our artifacts. They're full of symbolism,
Mm-hmm.
right? when we made the menorah, he said, put the bowls and the leaves and
Wisdom of
put
Solomon
everything
14:8.
on there, full of the almond bowls, full of symbolism. All right, olive branches, olive trees, everything the Father is. So don't be afraid of representing your 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 creation, the Father's creation, through symbolism. Just don't become, superstitious.
Right.
Going off, right?
I'll add my little spin. Don't get simple.
Don't get simple.
Don't get simple. Support that. Get that.
This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14 and verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
But that which is made with hands is cursed,
Why?
as well it as he made it.
Why?
He, because he made it,
Mm-hmm.
and it, because being corruptible,
Being corruptible.
it was called God.
It was created with the intention to be a god and be worshipped, right? And sometimes the intention can't even be behind the creation itself. It can be it can start in one's mind. I mean, you begin to look at this thing and begin to make it a god, even though it wasn't even intended to be a god. Right? Absolutely. Let's go ahead and look at this. Let's go ahead and continue. And we're going to continue off with John Hyrcanus. So now we get an idea on John Hyrcanus, and now we understand who this is if we mention him, right? So John Hyrcanus replaced his father, Simon Thassi, as high priest, right? He started off as high priest and prince over Israel, right? As his rulership began, and he began to continue to express how much more we are free and how we are independent. He later on proclaimed king and high priest over Israel, over the affairs of the state and over the spiritual affairs of Israel, right? Now, I meditated a little bit on this, and I I was meditating on this a little bit, and I was coming to the understanding that we know in prophecy, I want to say it's in Obadiah, Chief, you can correct me. It was in Obadiah where the Lord says Judah shall inherit the south, and it's referring to the territory Edom. That's why after the captivity of Edom, after he finally goes in slavery, he won't have a place to return to because his territory is going to belong to Judah, right? If I remember correctly, it was in Obadiah. Let me see real quick. Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna look for it, but the point that I'm bringing out is that it's prophesied that we're gonna inherit all that territory of Edom, right? That he won't have a territory to go back to, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because this tends to be something that John Hyrcanus was working on, right? Because his motive, he actually went down south of Judea, and he actually went to the territory that was there, which was Edomia or Seir, right, where the Edomites were, right, and he went there with the intention to conquer it, right. But let's see what actually came from this, right, and how all this plays with understanding. How did this devil, this Edomite, become king of Israel in the New Testament? Less than 200 years later. How did this happen? Now let's read this. Go ahead. It's on the screen. Hold on 1 second. Bam.
Hyrcanus took also Dora
Hold on
and
1 second.
Marissa, cities of Idumea.
Hold on 1 second. So what we're reading is the Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 13, Chapter 9. Go ahead. How after the death of Antiochus, Hyrcanus made an expedition against Syria and made a league with the Romans concerning the death of King Demetrius and Alexander. Go ahead.
Hyrcanus took also Dora and Marissa,
Mm-hmm.
cities of Idumea, and subdued all the Idumeans, and
Right?
permitted
Edomians are the Edomites. Go ahead.
them to stay in the country, if they would circumcise their genitals and make use of the law of the Jews.
Right. So they had to circumcise their genitals, right? They had to perform circumcision, and they had to adhere to the laws, right? So now, so far, when we go into our history of our people in the scriptures, we don't see an instance where we're doing this, right? Right? We don't see an instance where we're conquering a heathen territory and we're forcing them to succumb to the laws of our people, right? Because these laws were for us, right? This is different, vastly different from when a heathen enters into our land or enters into a territory that we have control of and have to adhere to the laws. That's no different than from a brother or sister coming into America and have to adhere to the laws of America. Ain't no different, right? But it's different when you're conquering a territory and you're forcing these people to adhere to your law. This is something that we never done. And there's no instance of any brother who had positional power in Israel who ever did this, right? But it goes further. Go ahead.
And they were so desirous of living in the country of their forefathers that they submitted to the use of circumcision
Uh-huh.
and of the rest of the Jewish ways of living.
Uh-huh. And what
At
happened?
which time, therefore, this befell them, that they were hereafter no other than Jews.
Right. So these Edomites, from this point on paper, it was seen that these people were Jews. Simply because they adhered to the laws, circumcised themselves, and they did this all with the purpose of staying in their land, right? But none of these things make you a Jew. They don't make you a Jew. A brother can be. Go ahead, slack it, elder. Go ahead.
That's why they say they practice Judaism,
Mm-hmm.
because it is Judaism. Ism means you're following something according to. Right? So they do practice Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And their historians know that they're not the Jews. That's why they call themselves Jewish.
Israeli.
And that's why they call themselves, they practice Judaism. And that's why they call them Israeli, right, instead of Israelites, right? They know that they're not, the historians know that they're not the Jews. They just believe that they can take the Jews' spot of the original Jews. They
Right.
believe that they can acquire that spot. And that verse that you were referring to is in Joshua 18, where it says, Joshua 18:5, and they shall divide into 7 parts. Judah shall abide in their coast on the south, and the house of Joseph shall abide in the coast on the north. So going in that Judah was going to take the south, right, all the way down the coast, right?
good
If
point.
you look
That's,
at a map, you know that's it'll go into Esau's area or Edom's area. We're supposed to take all of that over, right? So, but yeah, that Judaism comes from this establishing themselves. Well, they didn't establish themselves. We kind of forced them to be to follow our laws, right, under this king. And from that point on, they historically thought that they could reestablish the Jews. You know, when they looked into their history books, right? The Esau went back into his history books to say, "Yo, we was Jews at one time.
Right.
We could go back in the land in 1942 and say we could reestablish that, you know, that history of our forefathers when they was being Jews."
Right. That's a good point. Great point. Build up on what he just read in Joshua, Obadiah 1 and 18 to 20. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's going to read it. Obadiah 1, 18 to 20. Just to build up on that verse as well. That's a great, excellent point. You know.
1 and 18.
Yeah, 1 and 18.
It's the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and verse 18.
Uh-huh.
And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph shall be a flame,
Mm-hmm.
and the house of Esau for stubble.
Uh-huh.
And they shall kindle in them, and devour them, and shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Most High has spoken it.
Right. And it was already prophesied that Esau would be entirely eradicated, right? But when we read in Joshua, it's like when we read in Joshua, it said it was prophesied Judah was going to inherit all of the south. But keep going.
Verse 19. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau.
And an extension to what's already being said in verse 18. Who were they of the south in Israel? That was Judea. That was Judah. Go ahead. And they of the south, come on.
And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau.
Uh-huh.
And they of the plain, the Philistines.
Mm-hmm.
And they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria. And Benjamin shall possess Gilead.
Come on.
And the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath.
Right. Even in ancient Israel, for those who are familiar with the history and have been following along with the history with us, then you will know that even when we came into the land of Israel, we never fully eradicated the Canaanites. So we never actually experienced inheriting all of the land of Canaan. So even when we read here in verse 20, when we go back into the land, we're going to have all of that territory. There will be no heathens that have territory within our land. Right? Go ahead.
And the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south.
Exactly. So now let's go back. So what we're reading here, we see that basically what John Hyrcanus did was, and on paper, made these heathens, these non-Israelites, Jews. But we know that no man has authority to do so. No man has authority to make another man a Jew, because what makes us Jews? Go ahead. Got a question?
Oh, our lineage, our bloodline, our father, who our father is.
Exactly. Our lineage backed our father going back to Jacob, right? Us being an Israelite is predicated on us, our fathers going back to Jacob. And nice connection. Is it dead or is it good? Okay. It's predicated on that. Let's read a quick verse real quick. Give me the book of Ezra. Ezra. There you go. Ezra 2 and 62. You start from 61. These electrolytes. You gotta stop eating defiled bread at home, Israel. You gotta stop drinking them defiled drinks. You need to get down with that natural coconut water. Take your minerals. Take your vitamins. Take all of that. I'm trying to get down on the right path. Get my body fit, ready when Yahushua come back. He needs me to fight, I'm there.
All right, 2 and what?
2 and 61.
This is the book of Ezra, chapter 2 and verse 61.
Uh-huh.
And the children of the priest, the children of Habiah, the children of Koz, the children of Barzillai, which took a wife of the daughters of Barzillai in Gileadite,
Mm-hmm.
and was called after their name.
All right, so what we're seeing here, this is the lineage of people who is coming back from Babylon, right? Coming back to Babylon, going into the land with Ezra and Nehemiah and so on and so forth. Go ahead.
These sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy.
By what?
By genealogy.
By circumcision.
By genealogy.
By them adhering to the law.
By genealogy.
They sought their registry. They were proving that they were Israelites and that they were Levitical priests by going through their genealogy, right? And their genealogy was predicated off their fathers, right? That's how we know. That's how we go through the process of determining who you are. That's why we ask when we go on the streets and we're teaching the word. We'll ask you, right? At some point in the conversation, we're gonna ask you, what is your father? Hey, what's your ethnicity of your father? That's the reason why we're asking you, because it's in the Bible. Go ahead, keep reading. It's like
but they were not found. Therefore, were they as polluted, put from the priesthood. Verse 63. And the Tirshatha said unto them, that they should not eat of the most holy things, till there stood up a priest with Urim and Thummim.
Right. So they said these people, they for sure cannot eat of the holy things until they can determine whether or not they're priests by the Urim and Thummim. Right. But the first step to know whether or not they were priests, they had to go through their genealogy, and that's the point. Right. Let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 1, verse. It was 1 and 20 or 1 and 18. Number 1 and 18. Your fathers. Right. It's important that we understand this. So that when we look at things like this and we're reading things like this, we're able to identify, wait a minute, this guy is going against the scriptures. This guy is going against the things that we know the Bible tells us. Right? Go ahead.
This is the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse 18.
Mm-hmm.
And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month.
Uh-huh.
And they declared their pedigrees.
Their pedigrees, just like when they were going through their genealogy in Ezra chapter 2. Go ahead.
After their families.
After their families, go ahead.
By the house of their fathers.
They determined it by their fathers. Right? So even though they didn't have to say that here in Ezra chapter 2, but this is what they're doing. They're going through their genealogies to see the house of your fathers, whether or not you were a priest. That's how they're determining it in Ezra chapter 2, right? This is what makes us Israelites, not just simply keeping the law, right? Even though the scripture does say, only Israel has kept thy precepts, right? Ezra chapter 2, verse 61 to 63, right? But that, obviously that's not speaking in the sense of just keeping the laws flat, because there's heathens who obviously lived in our land and had to keep the laws. It couldn't have been heathens who were living in our land committing adultery, or they would have died, right? So it's speaking more so willingly, right? So let's go back. Let's go to hold on 1 second. All right. So now we read about what did Hyrcanus do, right? This problematic thing, because this one problematic thing of quote unquote, converting these heathens and making them quote unquote Jews is what led to the destruction of the Hasmonean dynasty, which led to the destruction of these Levitical priests sitting on the throne governing Israel as an independent country, right? He followed all of that. And all of that happens right after 1 Maccabees chapter 16, what we just read. He just got the throne, and he already messed it up. So let's read this. So one thing I want to say before we continue is that he did this not predicated off anything we see in the Torah or in the history of our people righteously, but he did this predicated off something called Greek Hellenization, right? Greek Hellenization is where we get the idea that if you keep my culture, you follow my God, and you take this name upon you, you are of me, right? Right? You follow Greek gods, you follow Greek culture, you're Greek now. And that same blueprint was taken by the Romans, right? And then you obtain a Roman citizenship, now you're a Roman, right? And then why are we bringing this up? Because this relates to us today. This is where America gets the concept from, right? You come over here and you're American. Forget your ethnicity. You're an American, right? Forget looking for your identity. You're an American. What do they say? Blue, white, and red. Red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. That's you. If it rhymes, it makes sense. Go ahead. Let's go ahead. Let's get this right. Read this real quick.
John Hyrcanus' decision to forcibly convert the Edomites set in motion a chain of events that would eventually lead to the downfall of the Hasmonean dynasty. While the conversions expanded Jewish territory and religious influence, they also gave rise to powerful Idumean figures like Antipas and Herod, who would leverage their newfound status to overthrow the Hasmoneans and take control of Judea under Roman rule.
So why do we bring this up? As you just read from our notes right here, Herod was a descendant of these same Edomites that got converted by Hyrcanus. And it was through having it on paper that you were a Jew is how his family got close with the people of Israel. Slowly gain political power. Slowly gain, government power. Begin to start to be able to say, be able to have a say in our daily affairs. You understand? So let's go ahead and read this right in the Josephus. What was going on? Hold on 1 second. Let's put this on the screen. Yes. Why is it like that? Let me see. Try it again. Okay, there you go. That's better. All right. All praises. Bam. So let's read it. This is Antiquities of the Jews, Book 14, Chapter 1. Right? So context, right? What's going on right here before we read this, right? What's going on at this point? So we know what John Hyrcanus did that plays a part with the topic of the conversation. We understand his part in what led Herod to obtain the throne. Getting these Edomites involved with Israel. Having it established on paper that they were Jews if they kept our commandments, circumcise themselves, and follow our God. Right? This is how Esau got involved with our people, in this way. Okay. 2, as time passed by, right, he passed his throne on. John Hyrcanus would die. He passed his throne on to Alexander Jannaeus. Alexander Jannaeus married his wife, Alexandra Salome. Alexander Salome and Alexander Jannaeus is where we begin to enter into an era where the Pharisees and the Sadducees begin to have political power and sway in Israel, right? By promoting Alexander Jannaeus as one of Hyrcanus' sons to become king over Israel, that's how the Pharisees obtained political power in Israel. Now, this led to a war between the Pharisees, Alexander Jannaeus, and the Sadducees, right? And these Sadducees, after Alexander Jannaeus ended up dying, he told his wife, it was a mistake. We should have had the support of the Sadducees. So she becomes a turncoat, turns her back on the Pharisees, and goes to the Sadducees, and they end up supporting her rulership, and then she becomes queen of Israel. All right, Alexandra Salome. Now we're about to enter into what we're about to read. Alexandra Salome, the wife of Alexander Jannaeus, she waits until her deathbed to choose who's going to reign after her. And about the time she was about to reign, she had two decisions. Her eldest son, Hyrcanus II, and Aristobulus. Hyrcanus II was a peaceful man, but he was not concerned with the affairs of Israel, right? He was more so concerned with his own life, his private life. Aristobulus was concerned with the affairs of Israel, but she feared his ambition, feared that he was not going to be satisfied where the estate in which Israel was at that time, right? She was afraid that he would lead to conflict with Rome and all these other nations that was around us. So she passed the throne on to Hyrcanus II. And this is what led into a next civil war between the two brothers. Now we're here. All praises. There you go. Now we can read this.
Hyrcanus then began his high priesthood on the 3rd year of the 177th Olympiad, when Quintus Hortensius and Quintus Metellus, who was called Metellus of Crete, were consuls at Rome. When presently Aristobulus began to make war against him, and as it came to a battle with Hyrcanus at Jericho, many of his soldiers deserted him and went over to his brother, upon which Hyrcanus fled into the citadel where Aristobulus' wife and children were imprisoned by their mother. As we have said already.
Oh, citadel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As we have said already, and attacked and overcame those his adversaries that fled thither, and lay within the walls of the temple. So when he had sent a message to his brother about agreeing the matters between them, he laid aside his enmity to him on these conditions: that Aristobulus should be king, that he should live without intermeddling with public affairs,
Right.
and quietly enjoy the estate he had acquired. When they had agreed upon these terms in the temple, and had confirmed the agreement with oaths, and the giving one another their right hands, and embraced one another in the sight of the whole multitude, they departed, the one Aristobulus to the place, and Hyrcanus to the palace, and Hyrcanus as a private man to the former house of Aristobulus.
Right. So this was the end of the Civil War, right? This was the end of the Civil War, and it came to a conclusion. Hyrcanus will forfeit his throne and his political power and give it over to his brother Aristobulus, right? And it was done. But then here we're going to figure out if it was done, then how did Hyrcanus II end up back on the throne? How did he end up back on the throne if he gave it over to Aristobulus, right? All right, let's get this. Let's see why that happened. Hold on 1 second. It's very interesting. It was a long civil war between the two of these brothers. A lot of death happened in Israel because of these two brothers. But ultimately, Josephus had a very interesting insight between the two of them. Oh, Con. Josephus had a very interesting insight to the two of them, but he has something very interesting to say about his mother. He said that the death total, the total death that occurred, huh? What? What are you talking about? Oh, okay. Come on, throw it, King. All praises. But Josephus said something very interesting. He said that that the death total that took place in Israel at that time in the Civil War, all that conflict could have been avoided if the throne was never given to Alexandra. The throne was never given to his mother, and something that should never belong to women was given to a woman. That's that. That was something that was said by Josephus, and it was very wise. The reason why, because of her poor decision on choosing who should reign, it led to this whole civil war and led to this death, and it would lead to the death of her other son, Aristobulus. It would lead to her son, the death of her son. Right? And you know what? Let me read something on that. Give me Numbers. Let me read Numbers chapter 28. Yeah, let me read Numbers 28. You know, Josephus made a good point with that. Hey, hold on. Give me 1 second. There you go. It's like you. It was 27. Give me 27 verse 16 to 17.
Con. This is
No,
the
start
book
from
of
verse
Numbers,
15.
chapter 27 and verse 15.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses spake unto and Moses spake unto the Most High, saying, Let the Most High the let the Most High, the power of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation,
Right.
which may go out before them, and which may go in before them, and which may lead them out, and which may bring them in, that the congregation of the Most High be not as sheep with which have no shepherd.
Right.
And
That we don't be sheep without no shepherd. So we see what the Most High chose. And you know what's very funny? Remember when the Lord said, when you get into the land, there's going to be a point where you're going to desire to be what? Not just a ruler. It's not the word for ruler. It literally says specifically malak for king, which is a male. The Lord says specifically there's going to be a time where you're going to need a man you're going to want a man to rule over you. Let it be among your brethren, not of your people, right? So it wasn't something that would just open up to just anybody who wanted to sit in that position of power, right? It was very specific. You want to say anything on that, Elder?
The word said enough. Supposed to be a man. Man's supposed to rule.
Con.
Our sisters are not supposed to rule. We're not supposed to have queens. I think that's this kingdom says I'm a queen. I'm supposed to go. I'm a queen but there's no king.
Have known no
No, no.
sorrow or something like that. I know. I think I know Ezra, Isaiah, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna find that.
Okay, con. Yeah, that's a good scripture. Here, why you looking for that? Let's start reading this a little bit. This is the same book. The same book, the book of Josephus. It's like 1 second. Josephus, the Antiquities of Jews, book 14, chapter. Let me see. It's still chapter 1. It's just paragraph 3. Okay. Go ahead.
but there was a certain friend of Hyrcanus, an Idumean, called Antipater.
Right. Antipater, right? The Idumean, right? He's one of the descendants of these Edomites that were converted by Hyrcanus the first, right? But he's not just any Edomite. Antipater is Herod the Great's father, the same Herod we read about in the New Testament, right? So now we get a scope, we get an understanding and how close we are to the events of the New Testament, right? Because I want this to be easy, simple understanding, very simple understanding transition as we go into the New Testament, right? Go ahead.
Who was very rich, and in his nature an active and
Sedition.
seditious man,
Seditious man. It's like you.
who was at enmity with Aristobulus,
Uh-huh.
and had differences with him on account of his good will to Hyrcanus. 'Tis true that Nicholas and Damascus say that Antipater was of the stock of the principal Jews who came out of Babylon into Judea.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
But that assertion of his was to gratify Herod,
Uh
who
huh.
was his son, and who, by certain revolutions of fortune, came afterward to be king of the Jews, whose history we shall give you in its proper place hereafter. However, this Antipater was at first called Antipas,
Right.
and that his father's name also, of whom they relate this, that King Alexander and his wife made him general of all Idumea, and that he made a league of friendship with those Arabians and Gazites and Ascalonites that were of his own party.
Right. So I remember saying I remember saying very specifically that it was Herod's father, not father, family that gained political power because of Hyrcanus the first. It's like I don't know why. You know, it's natural, right? It was because of Hyrcanus the first's conversion of the Edomites at that time. This is how Herod's family got involved with having political power in Israel and gaining wealth and say in our government affairs. And because it happened right after Hyrcanus the first, his son Alexander Jannaeus, who made this man and Herod's grandfather Antipas general over all of Dumia. Right? So now when we read the beginning of this, we understand how Herod's father was wealthy and had all this wealth and was rich. Because his father was the general of all Dumia. And he was established in that position by Hyrcanus the first's son. Right? So go ahead and read. Keep going. So we see the trend of them having power in Israel. You found it? Okay, you want to read it real quick.
Revelation
Mm-hmm.
18:7.
Mm-hmm. I know this is it's in I think Isaiah 43.
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 18, and verse 5. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh hath remembered her iniquities. Verse 6.
40,
Reward her even as she rewarded you,
47. That's what I was thinking of.
and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she hath in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow.
I mean that she have right to rule, because this is a queendom. You know what I mean? They have a right to rule, like a feminine rule is a right of the woman. A queen only became queen because she married a king.
Mm.
That's how Esther became queen.
Right.
She married a king, right? That's the only thing. That's what makes you a queen, marrying the king, right?
Right.
And if the king dies, you're still the queen, but another king has to be put in position. You can't
The
rule.
power doesn't transfer to you.
Yeah,
Right.
the power don't transfer to you.
Right.
The queen is only the king's wife. That's it. You know what I mean? You don't have power. So it's the same spirit like was on Jezebel at the time Ahab was ruling. She thought she was the queen, like she could take Ahab's ring and start making policies and sending men to do things and stuff.
Setting men up to die.
Setting men up to die. You don't have no power. Right? Right now in this kingdom here, they're trying to elect a queen over America right now.
Right. That's a good point.
Right? Her husband ain't no king. You know what I mean? How's she gonna be queen? They tried that nonsense with Hillary because they figure Bill was the king.
No.
You know,
And you
so
never know.
these heathens are always on that queen stuff.
You never know. Even without a queen, that spirit still exists. That spirit still exists. But it's crazy. You never know if Kamala Harris actually does win. All praise to the Most High, destruction of Babylon.
Just the fulfillment
Right,
of scripture.
right,
Because this is a queen. We've been saying this is a queendom.
right. For years.
Yeah, for years. Scriptures say it's a queendom.
Now here you go.
Revelations.
Right.
A woman ruling was not far fetched.
Mhm.
This wicked kingdom would seal the wickedness of this kingdom.
Right, right, right.
So it would definitely be one step closer to us getting out of here if Camilla Harris wins that.
Okay. All praises. Praises. That's a good point. All praises. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see where I was gonna go. Oh, Slakia. Finish that off. Let me see. Yeah, let's finish this off. Bam.
I was after Arabians, Gazites, and Ascalonites.
That were of his party.
Yeah,
And had,
right here. And had by many and
Yeah, there you
large
go, yeah.
presents made them his fast friends. By now, the younger interpreter was suspicious of the power of Aristobulus, and was afraid of some mischief he might do him.
right. Why is Antipater afraid of the mischief that might come to him by Aristobulus? Well, I gave you a understanding of the distinction between these two individuals. One is concerned with the affairs of Israel, and one is not. Right? So it makes sense why this Edomite is friends with the one who is not concerned with the affairs of Israel. Because while Hyrcanus II is looking the other way, hold on. While Hyrcanus II is looking this way, this Edomite is sitting in your throne, wearing your ring, making policies, affecting the lives of the children of Israel, and you're just not caring. But if Aristobulus is sitting on the throne, your head is going to be rolling down the block because he's going to be thinking to himself, how the heck did we allow this devil to get this close to our power? Right? That's why he's afraid. He's scared. Because this man, once he gets on this throne, you're no longer going to excel in Israel. You're no longer going to have any political power. That's not me. You're not going to have any more political power, right? So that's why he's afraid of Aristobulus. Right? Go ahead and keep reading.
Because of his hatred to him. So he stirred up the most powerful of the Jews and talked against him to them privately and said,
what?
That it was unjust to overlook the conduct of Aristobulus, who had gotten the government unrighteously and had elected his brother out of it, who was the elder.
Right? So Hyrcanus submitted to this pact he made with his brother Aristobulus to give him the throne, give him the priesthood, and he's going to let go of all political power. Yeah, he submitted to that. But what got him back involved with trying to get that throne again, it was all because of this devil. Right? It was because of this devil. And Hyrcanus II is not even thinking to himself, well, maybe this devil is trying to manipulate me, control me. No. Maybe he just have the best interests for me. Maybe he's doing all this just so I can sit on the throne for real, because he really cares about me. He does not. I'm gonna tell you as simple as can be said. Antipater cared nothing for Hyrcanus II. Only thing he cared about was power and authority for himself and his family, and that's all any Edomite ever cares about. Right? I read this scripture. Just read it one more time. Give me the book of Sirach, chapter 12. 12 and 6.
This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12 and verse 6. For the Most High hateth sinners, and will repay vengeance unto the ungodly, and keepeth them against the mighty day of,
Salakia,
of
12
their
and 10.
punishment.
Salakia, 10, 12 and 10.
This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12 and verse 10. Never trust thine enemy.
What did it say?
Never trust thine enemy.
And that's something Hyrcanus didn't understand, right? That's something that he did not understand. And this is why he's going to allow himself, he allowed himself, not going to, he did. He allowed himself to be manipulated by Antipater and he allowed himself to believe that he was actually a friend of his, when really he was just manipulating him to use him as a puppet to sit on the throne so he can continue to gain more wealth and more power and authority over God's flock. Go ahead.
For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness.
Uh-huh.
Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass.
That all that evil, all that greed, all that spirit of theft, it never went anywhere. It was always still just there. Just when you thought you found a good Edomite, I'm sorry. The universal truth is that they're all devils. Right? You know what's crazy, Chief? That's actually a universal truth. That's a universal truth in every movie you could ever watch in Hollywood. The universal truth in every movie you can watch in Hollywood is Esau is always the devil. He's always the devil. He's always the deceiver. He's always trying to steal something from somebody or something. He's always trying to kill somebody. He's always trying to take something that don't belong to him. He's always lying. He's always the devil. Mm-hmm. It's in every movie. All right, man. It's nature. So let's see. Let's go ahead. Let's get some conclusion. Let's get something on this. Hold on 1 second. Let's get a part on this. Slakia. So we're going to do a little jumping, right? We're going to do a little jumping. Salakia. Hold on 1 second. We're going to do a little jumping. But don't worry, I'm going to fill the gap in what occurs. There you go. I was wondering where it's not coming in. There you go. There you go. Slakia. Okay. So, I'm going to fill in the gap and where we left off, right? So, where we leave off in, I want to say chapter 14 of the Josephus, Antipater manipulated Hyrcanus. He manipulated Hyrcanus to rally an army to fight against Aristobulus. Aristobulus is high priest and king at this time. So he can't use the army of Israel. So what did Antipater advise him to do? Why does it have to be the nation of Israel? He advised him to go turn to Idumea. So Hyrcanus II goes to Idumea. He rallies a bunch of Edomites, rallies the Nebatine people we talked about classes before, the Arabs that were migrating into that area. So he rallies the Edomites, rallies the Nebatines, and he goes fight Aristobulus. They start another civil war. Neither one of the sides is having a definite win. Battles are fighting, but they're not winning. So what do? They both seek the allyship of Rome. They're both sending treasures, possessions to a specific Roman general, General Poppy. And General Poppy, he noticed, we're supposed to be allies. At this time, Rome is allies with Israel. But it's like, why is this guy saying he's high priest and king over Israel, sending me treasures? He want me to help him get involved to take down this guy. But this guy is saying he's high priest and king, the rightful ruler, high priest and king. And he's sending me treasures and things like that, saying he want me to take out this guy. So Rome sends General Poppy to Israel to settle the affair and what's going on. But not just that. This goes back to the class I had. Salakia for the language. But this is the title of the class. This goes back to a class I did years ago on David. There was this Israelite. He saw that all the tribes, Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom, was basically debating themselves about who was closer to David. And when Judah prevailed against Northern Kingdom, this Israelite stood up and said, X, Y, and Z, y'all go to your tents and we'll go to our tents. But no one knew who this guy was, but he spoke for them and they all followed him. And the title of the class is Evil Niggas Capitalize Off Confusion, because that's what they do. And that's exactly what Rome did. They sent General Poppy not just to end this quarreling, but also to make Israel a Roman province. And that's how we became a Roman province and entered into captivity in the New Testament. Because it's because of this general who got sent to Israel, right? Because once he came, he said, listen, this is all done and over, right? I'm going to come back to y'all in a couple of days, and I'm going to settle who's going to be whatever. Aristobulus said, all that, I don't care about all that. Takes his army, marches south. Poppy chases him, make him a Roman prisoner, sends him to Rome, and then Hyrcanus II becomes, quote unquote, high priest and king. But you know who actually became the true ruler of Israel at that time? Antipater. Antipater. He became the de facto ruler of Israel, right? Because he was aiding Poppy at that time. And because he already had political power and sway, he was like, you know what, basically, you're going to be the true guy ruling, pulling the strings. But on paper, Hyrcanus II is high priest and king. So that's how Antipater made Herod governor of Jerusalem, made his other son, I won't say, he made him governor of Galilee, and that's how the Edomites begin to have more power and sway. Israel was looking at all this and saying, yo, Hyrcanus II, why don't you put an end to this? He really couldn't. He couldn't say it because they would war against him and overthrow him, but he knew he couldn't say anything because he knew the truth of what was going on, that Rome had his hand on Israel's neck at this time. Rome had a neck on Israel at this time, right? So just the context before we read this in the Josephus, Pompey ends up betraying, General Pompey ends up betraying Rome. Antipater sides with Julius Caesar, what's his name again? Yeah, Julius Caesar, Octavian Augusta, and Mark Antony to overthrow him. He died. General Pompey dies, and they make Antipater's son. They made him the future king, and they made his father the Roman governor over all Israel, right? And that's how the Edomites took control of Israel. Let's read this real quick. So, now, is there any questions so far? I see the chat going crazy. Let me see this real quick. Let's see the chat. So, you gonna say something, Chief?
No, let's see what's going on in the chat.
Okay. I just see some stuff. I don't know what they're saying. BTO podcast. What I don't know for David. Who is this BTO podcast production? Who is that? Oh, okay. Gotta get rid of the kingdom. All right, no, it's all right. There's any questions. Unless there's any questions, you can post in the chat, and Lord willing, I'll answer it to the best of my ability about the topic at hand.
But this topic kills all those Hebrews that don't believe in the New Testament,
Right,
and they just end history like history stopped at Malachi.
right,
You know what I mean? And they can't explain that 500-year period after we come out of the Persians and the Medes conquest.
right,
What happened? You know what I mean? How did we end up with Herod? Or where did we go? Disappear? You know?
right.
Or did we vanish?
Mm-hmm.
So this gaps, it takes away the gap, this history that you're going into, fills that gap fully with what happened after we're in the land with the Persians and Medes, we rebuild the temple, right? We don't live happily ever after.
Right. Mm-hmm.
After that, it becomes a battle for world dominance by these other nations. Because ultimately the Persians and Medes, they wanted world dominance.
Right.
It wasn't just want to rule Israel.
He wasn't satisfied.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
weren't satisfied.
No.
Just have to put their foot on that. They were trying to they were trying to make the world a tributors to them. So when we learn that history, no one can fake you or try to treat you like the New Testament doesn't have validity. Because what we're basically doing is continuing the timeline, bringing us all the way to Hebron, bringing us to the fulfillment of the prophecies of Yahushua and why he had to come.
Mm-hmm.
Without this piece of history, it's a gap. It becomes religious. You know what I mean? Just believe it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have a logical, reasonable understanding of what happened to these people. So it's crucial to learn about the Hasmonean Empire, Judas Maccabees, what happened, why it happened, what happened afterwards. Because if you don't understand that, you can't get that out of just your King James Bible
Right.
because it leaves a gap.
Okay.
I mean, you might get some out of your Apocrypha, but you still got a gap. And that's why when we came up in this word, it made sure we learned the Josephus so that we understood that there was no break.
So like, pass that mic to the chief. They're saying they can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Yeah. I thought they could hear you the whole time because I see the thing moving.
Slack your family. I know you couldn't hear me. And what I was going into was how this history that the captain, Natzak, is going into, how important it is that you get this understanding because you're going to run into a lot of Hebrew Israelites where they stop their history at the book of Malachi. In the book of Malachi, we're being ruled by the Persian and Medes. We just rebuilt our temple. But so much happens after that. Before we get to Matthew's, right, where now we're under Roman rulership and Herod is king, we don't understand how this come about without this history. This fills a big gap. When you come out of the book of Malachi, you have to go into the book of the first and second Maccabees, just to understand the chronological order that leads us up to Roman rulership, like when Christ was born under Herod.
Mm-hmm.
But even the Maccabees, as he went to the 16th chapter, it itself doesn't bring us all the way to Maccabees. What fills the gap? You got to go to the Josephus and other historical literature that fills that gap between the Maccabees and then Roman rulership. Because remember, the Greeks are ruling in the Maccabees. Even though we fought back, it's still their rulership. We never really take over the Greeks. We take back parts of our own land, but the Greeks are still the powers on the earth, right? And they transition, actually during the Maccabees, they transitioned from the Greeks to the Romans. Then now we get to, Matthew's is pure Roman rulership.
Mm-hmm.
All the way through, how did the 7 churches end up where they ended up? You have to learn this part of history. So I suggest you look over this class over and over again till you grasp what happened and in the chronological order, so that you can speak intelligently, articulate your history, so nobody can make you religious and try to make you into church folk and
Right.
just believe in stuff because you like the way it sounds. We at the Light of Zion, we don't believe in this because we like the way it sounds. We have the historical proof that walks us through from, let's call it Egypt to America.
Right.
We have the historical proof that walks these people coming out of Egypt, the Israelites, going through the various different captivities until the captivity of America. There's no gaps in our historical preference. There's no gaps in our historical records. This can take away that religious argument, or we could be this or we could be that. Somebody would have to give us chronological order, fill history, us being African and doing all of this, or us being Negroes or niggas and doing all of this. You can't do it. It's impossible, right? That's why there is no rival religion. There is no, well, we could be Muslims or we could be Islam. No, because Islam is not going to give you this information. They're going to have you believing in something. Iraq and some writings of Muhammad. If you go into the Quran, it does not give you historical facts, yearly timelines on how things came about. At least not for the Israelites, it don't. Right? They give some history on the Arabs, but nothing for the Israelites. Right? So family at home that's listening to this class, it's crucial that you play this class at least 5 times, 6 times over, and write notes and have your chronological order in place from the Persians to Herod. All right? That's my advice to the family that's watching it. And as we go further into it, we're going to go through the Gospels. We're going to understand the time of the book of Acts and then how we end up out of Israel. You know what I'm saying? How we end up in northern Africa and how we end up in America through the prophecy. Right? We can walk you all the way to your doorstep with this word here at the Light of Zion. So our family that's online, I appreciate you. And you could come out to 2937 West Broad Boulevard every Friday so you could fill those gaps of knowledge, so that when we speak as the scholars and those that follow a true and living God and a true history, a true archaeology, a true geography, right? And nobody can come and tell you that Israel's in the Sub-Saharan desert, or Israel's in South America, or whatever. All these crazy doctrines that come out online can't fool you because you have the records. All right? All praise to Yah.
Khan, all praises to what, sir. Yahweh Shemethah, and to the elder, all praises. Khan. Here, just finish this up. We read this, read one chapter, and then we read the first chapter of Matthew, and then end it. All praises, praises. Let's see. Okay, let's finish this off. So let's finish this off. This was Antiquities of the Jews, Book 14, Chapter 8. Go ahead.
When an interpreter had made this speech, Caesar appointed Hyrcanus to be high priest, and interpreter what principality he himself should choose,
Right.
leaving the determination to himself. So he made him procurator of Judea.
And that's the same position, and that's the same position of power that Pontius Pilate had over Israel in the New Testament. So this Edomite gained this. Basically, he became the de facto ruler of Israel. Hyrcanus, on paper, was high priest and king, but he himself, he was the real ruler. He was the one making the decisions on what was going on in our land. And this is how we enter into that time period where heathens are ruling over us. Heathens is deciding our daily life, right? Right, absolutely. No, right? And you made a powerful point. When you fill up that gap, then you go from Ezra, you go from Malachi, and you go straight into the New Testament. It's like Pharisees, Sadducees, these different groups, these guys giving all this pressure to Christ, and like they have a power and sway and stuff like they're the judges or priests or something like that. But you just don't understand why, where these people are coming from. You know what I mean, and where are these sects coming from, and where did Herod come from? But this is where this is all understood through the history. You know what I mean, let's read one more final slide from the Josephus, and then we're gonna go straight to the book of Matthew. We're not gonna read this whole thing, but yeah, because I know for his brothers and sisters at home, I made a promise so many times when I was first beginning Maccabees that I was gonna go into this with Herod and the family, the Herodian family, and how did they uproot 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 the Hasmonean dynasty and how they steal power, right? So I'm happy that we was able to go into this, finally. All praise the Most High. All right, so we're just gonna read this first chapter. I'm not gonna read all of it. I just want to get a touch on a couple points here. Let's read that first. You can see it.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Let's see. So as you can see, concerning Phileo and Semeas, Herod slays the principal of Antigonus' friends and spoils the city of its wealth. Antony beheads Antigonus. Antigonus was the great grandson of Aristobulus, right? After Hyrcanus was high priest, there was a separation, right? Even though Herod's father was still the de facto ruler, they made a separation between high priest and king, and it was a long time that they should have been did this, right? It was about time that they separated the two, and they finally did it after Hyrcanus II. So Aristobulus, he separated himself, and he tried to say, "No, I'm not gonna settle for that." And he wanted to become high priest and king, so he joined up with the Parthians to try to overtake Israel. He went this outside to go join up with some more heathens to go overtake Israel, right? And ultimately, that didn't end up anywhere, So go ahead, let's read this.
How Sausus and Herod took Jerusalem by force,
Mm-hmm.
and besides that, how they took Antigonus captive,
It's like, yo,
has been related by us in the foregoing book. We will
Why is
now
thing-
proceed
it's like, yo, why is
in the
thing-
narration, and since
Hold on,
Herod
hold on.
had
One second. This thing was moving. All right, go ahead. Where were you at?
And since Herod had now the government of all Judea put into his hands, he promoted such of the private men in the city, and had been of his party, but never left off avenging and punishing every day.
So, small side note. So, now we went from Antipater becoming de facto ruler of Israel, right? He ends up getting put to death by conspiracy, right? Herod ends up fleeing from Rome. He ends up coming back. He established he established a friendship with his father's friends, Mark Antony, Julius Caesar, Octavian, and so on and so forth, right? They have a plot to make him king over Israel, right? But because even though on paper he was seen as a Jew, Israel still seen the Herodian family as outsiders, right? They were clearly Edomites, right? And they didn't care what Hyrcanus did, you know. So what did he do? He was looking for a wife, right? And he took a very specific wife. He took a woman named Mary the first. Mary was the daughter of was the granddaughter of Hyrcanus II, right? She married the son that became high priest after Hyrcanus II, right? Was Alexander, right? Alexander and Alexandra, his wife, had a conspiracy, realizing that the power was being slowly taken from the Hasmoneans and being given to the Herods, or Herodians. So what did she do? I just have to say as plain as possible. Mary did not want to be a Herod. She whore out her daughter to him, right? She threw her daughter to Herod, even though she despised him with all her heart. Because it says in the Josephus, she saw herself as superior to this Edomian, backwash, right? She came from the Hasmoneans, right? Descendants of the family of Judas and what they did for Israel. So she saw herself as royalty and saw herself as superior to Herod. But yet they threw her to Herod because she was a Hasmonean. And he needed that connection to that family, right? He needed that connection to that family. He needed that, but they also wanted him and their family so they can continue to have some type of political sway in Israel because they knew that they were losing it, right? So that was the worst mistake they could have done because she married him. He ended up killing her. He killed her later on. He had a couple of children by her. He killed all the children he had with her. Once he killed her, he lost his damn mind. He killed her because he had this sick infatuation with her because the more she hated him and the more she didn't want to be with him, the more he was infatuated with her. So as there was a plot, her sister and his mother plotted against Herod, planted seeds of doubt, saying, she's plotting against you. She's waiting for you to turn your back so that she can establish her family back in the throne, right? So he ends up saying, forget it. He beheads her, right? After having her in prison for 40, 50 days, right? He ends up killing the Levitical princess. And then he ends up killing the children he had with her because he was afraid that they were going to take the throne from him, right? And he ended up killing some more children that he had with another wife, right? Because there's a famous saying, I want to say it was Mark Antony or Octavian Augusta. One of the two said something very interesting about Herod in the Bible. It said, it's better to be Herod's pig than his son. Because he'll kill his son, but he won't kill his pig. Right? That's a famous saying that they said about Herod the Great. Right? So that's how he ended up on that throne. He ended up with that legitimacy by marrying Mary-Amy. Right? So let's go ahead and you finished all of it?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Those that had chosen to be of the party of his enemies, but Phileo and
the Pharisee. What? Go ahead.
Phileo the Pharisee and Simas and Sameas, a disciple of his, were honored by him above all the rest.
Right, and as you go on to the Josephus, you're going to learn that he supported the Pharisees, right? This is why they had so much sway in the New Testament, able to chase around Christ, telling him this, that, and a third plot against him with no fear, because he supported the Pharisees. You right? Go ahead.
For when Jerusalem was besieged, they advised the citizens to receive Herod, for which advice they were all well required. They were all requited.
Right.
But this Phileo, at the time when Herod was once upon his trial of life and death, foretold in way of reproach to Hyrcanus and the other judges how this Herod, whom they suffered now to escape, would afterward inflict punishment on them all, which had
Completion.
completion in time, while Yahweh fulfilled the words he had spoken.
All right. Let's just read this part right here, just so you can see. Let me see this rest. Where is it? So this just grew. There you go. Go ahead.
At this time, Herod, now he had got Jerusalem under his power, carried off all the royal ornaments and spoiled the wealthy men of what they had gotten. And when by the means he had heaped together a great quantity of silver and gold, gave it all to Anthony and
And
his friends.
that's Mark Antony. All right. Go ahead.
Gave it all to Anthony and his friends that were about him. He also slew 45 the principal men of Antigonus' party, and set guards at the gates of the city, that nothing might be carried out together with their dead bodies. They also searched the dead, and whatsoever was found, either of silver or gold or other treasure, it was carried to the king. Nor was there any end of the mercies he
The
brought
miseries.
upon them, the miseries that he brought upon them. And this distress was in part occasioned
Mm-hmm.
by the covetousness of the prince regent, who was still in want of more, and in part by the Sabbatic year, which was still going on, and forced the country to lie still uncultivated, since we are forbidden to sow our land that year.
Mm-hmm.
Now when Antony had received Antigonus and his captive, he determined to keep him against his triumph. But when he heard that the nation grew tedious, and that out of their hatred Herod, they continued to bear good will to Antigonus, he resolved to behead him at Antioch.
Right. To resolve to be held.
Behead him at Antioch.
What part did you read? Where did you read that?
I read a little bit after.
Okay. Wow. There you go. Right. And he resolved to behead him in Antioch, because in Antioch, who knows Antigonus? Nobody. Right. You're not gonna behead him in Israel, or it's gonna stir up the people. That was a Hasmonean. He could have been this, that, and a third. He could have been ruler, X, Y, and Z. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna give you a dishonorable kill. We're gonna kill you among some Edomites over there in Antioch. That's gonna cheer your death, and then hopefully that puts the end to your family. You understand? So, and this is Herod entering into the kingdom. Shortly after, like I said, he kills Mariamne, he loses his mind, kills them children. His mind deteriorates even more, and then that goes into the events of the New Testament. Shortly after, second chapter, he dies, because it said that one of the leading factors of his death was because he killed her. It deteriorated his health, his mental health. So he basically started to lose his mind. So that's how we get into the New Testament right there. So all praises. Now we can go to chapter 1, Matthew. See? There you go, all praises. There's a couple other things that happen, but get the conclusion of how did we get here. There you go. That's it. That was it. All right. So let's go ahead and get Matthew chapter 1. Come on.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 1 and verse 1.
All right.
The book of the generation of Hamashiach Yahushai, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judas and his brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And Judas begot Pharez and Zara of Tamar, and Pharez begat Ezram, and Ezram begot Amram, and Amram begot Abinadab, and Abinadab begot Naason, and Naason begot Solomon, and Solomon begot Boaz, and Rachab, and Boaz begot Obed of Ruth,
Mm-hmm.
and Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David, the king of the king, and David the king begot Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urizias. And Solomon begot Rehoboam. And Rehoboam begot Abiah. And Abiah begot Isaiah. And Isaiah begot Josaphat.
So
And Josaphat
pause right
begot
there.
Joram.
So the point is, so far we're getting the lineage, right? We're getting a lineage when we start the book of Matthews, because we're finally getting to this individual that we as the children of Israel have always been waiting for to finally come. And this was the Davidic Messiah, right? The Messiah, the Savior, the King that we've been waiting for to come and deliver the children of Israel. After all these wars with the Greeks, being enslaved to the Babylonians, the Persians, and the Medes, and the Romans now have us in captivity, he comes and we're like, finally, it's our time now to have world domination. That's what we were thinking. But we're still waiting. Patience. So let's get down. Let me see. Oh. Okay. Let me make sure to save that right there. Verse 12. Okay, jump down to 16.
Verse 16.
Mhm.
And Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary,
Mhm.
in whom was born Hamashiach Yahushua,
All right.
who is called Christ.
Who is called Christ, the Messiah, right? Joseph, his lineage. Clearly, we're talking about his father. His father. Let me make sure to say that slowly. His Joseph, his father. Right? So go ahead and read.
So all the generations of Abraham to David are 14 generations, and David until the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations, and from the carrying away into Babylon unto Hamashiach Yahushua are 14 generations.
Right.
Now the birth of Hamashiach Yahushua was on the wise, when as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found with child.
Right. So you're reading this. Christians are going to give you the perspective that the coming together is in the sense of them doing the business, intercourse, right? When this is not what this is talking about, right? The coming together is dealing with the ceremony, the wedding, the marriage, right? This is the coming together, them cohabiting one place, right? This is what the coming together is, right? And I got a precept for this, but can read us, keep going. Before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Spirit. Verse 19.
Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily.
So let's look at context. Verse 19 literally tells you Joseph being a just man. Just man, this is in the sense of what? He's righteous, which means he keeps God's laws, right? What's righteous about hiding the fact that your partner committed a capital offense against you? How is that righteous? That's not righteous at all. Because often we see in the law, we see in the scriptures where it says what? We put this individual to death so that what would happen? Why are we putting this individual to death? The other one to see, an example, but what else? Why are we putting this person to death? Don't cheat. Don't look over here. This guy. We're putting this person to death to put evil out of the land. We're putting this because we know if this person does it and we do nothing, this thing is going to spread. Right? Just like the example we get in the book of Esther, right? When he called his wife and she didn't come. The nobles told the king of Persia, he said, yo, you have to make an example out of her. Because if you don't, the whole realm of women are going to think they can disrespect their husbands. Right? So that's it, the reason why we did this is to put evil out of the land. And for him to hide this would be him not being a just man. Right? It will contradict the same verse where it's mentioning him being a just man. Right? Let's read something real quick. Leviticus chapter 5, verse 2. That's crazy. But you know, that's the thing. I don't believe Christians know how to read. I don't believe Christians. Two things. I don't think Christians know how to read, and I don't believe Christians know how to count. The Trinity. 1 + 1 + 1 = 1. Father, Son, Holy Spirit makes up one God. Three individuals make one, right? I don't believe Christians know how to count, and I don't believe they know how to read. But that's just me. I'm Captain Mount. That's it. You don't have to listen to me, right? Let's just read that real quick. Leviticus 5:2.
This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 5. Chapter 5 and verse 2. Or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast or a carcass of unclean
Wait, where
cattle.
you at? Where you at?
It's Leviticus 5:2.
Salakia. It's 5:1. I don't know why I remember it
The
5:2.
book of Leviticus, chapter 5 and verse 1.
And
if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing and is a witness,
right, you see this transgression, and you're a witness of this transgression. Go ahead.
whether he had seen or known of it,
You can't be like every black and Latino person in every neighborhood everywhere and say, I don't see nothing, I don't know nothing. You can't be that guy. It's not my business. You can't be that guy. You will die. It's like at YouTube. We will unalive you. We will unalive you because that right there is righteous. Right? Because you not saying anything makes you a partaker of said event, even though you didn't do anything. Right? Keep going.
if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity.
And you not saying anything is you doing something. It is you transgressing the law. Right? And you will bear your iniquity. So if Joseph was really a righteous man and he was really hiding the fact that his woman that he was supposed to be marrying had a child out of nowhere, we're not looking at this as some magical thing. We're looking at that as adultery. And he would have been righteous if he put her out. But the fact that he said, I don't want her to be a public example, means he knew exactly what was going on. He wasn't clueless. He laid with her, he did the business before the ceremony.
Supposed to lay at the ceremony because you're supposed to have the token of her virginity. You're supposed to have the sheep. Now it's not going to be no sheep.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to lay with her prior to the ceremony. So he's going off according to our traditions.
Hold on 1 second. I got a verse in Genesis. Hold on 1 second. Still like, yeah. Let me see this real quick. Get the book of Genesis chapter 38. Let me see this real quick. Hold on 1 second, Israel. Oh, I want to see something. I lost it. There was something on this. It's in Genesis 38. It's about Tamar, but never mind. Let's go back to Matthew. Salakia.
What verse?
Matthew chapter 1.
Verse 20.
Salakia. Sirach 42. There you go. 42. There you go. 42:9. This answers the verse when it tells you, because, okay, so if the coming together is the marriage, right? And Joseph is absolutely a righteous man, and he's not breaking the law. hiding the quote unquote fact that she committed adultery or she has a child, but it's not from him. But that child is his, and he knows it, right? Why does he not want her to be a public example then? Why does he fear her being a public example? Where is he getting this notion from? Let's see. The book of Sirach 42 and 9.
This is the book of Sirach, chapter 42 and verse 9.
Uh-huh.
The father waketh for the daughter,
Uh-huh.
when no man knoweth, and the care for her taketh away sleep,
Come on.
when she is young, lest she pass away the flower at her age, and being married, lest she should be hated.
Right. Come on.
In her virginity, lest she should be defiled.
Defiled, right?
And gotten
Someone
with child
engaged. Hold on one second. Engaged with her in sexual intercourse. Come on.
In her virginity, lest she be defiled, and gotten with child in her father's house,
Uh-huh.
and having an husband, lest she should misbehave herself, and when she is married, lest she should be barren.
Right. So what is this? What is this telling us? It's being looked as a shameful thing for this young woman who's a virgin, your daughter. She's in your house, but yet she's been defiled, engaged in intercourse, had a child in your house. It's being seen as a shameful thing. You understand? So this is the mindset that Joseph is coming from when he's saying, damn, what am I gonna do? The marriage isn't happening yet. Because I just remembered this part I slipped. I forgot to add on to this. The marriage hasn't happened yet. Technically, we ain't supposed to have had any sex yet. But damn, they're going to make a public example out of her. Why? Because of this right here, right? But let's get one thing, because I left something out. Let's go back to the law. Let's go back to the law. 22, Deuteronomy 22 and 15.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22 and verse 15.
Start from 13.
Verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
If any man take a wife and go in unto her, and hate her, and give occasions of speech against her, and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid.
Right.
Then shall the father of the damsel and the mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity.
He's saying, and this is about a situation if a man marries a woman and he begins to hate her, and he's trying to bring up an accusation that basically your daughter's a hoe. Your daughter's a hoe, and I can't stand her, right? So now we had something in our law to prevent this situation from occurring, right? From some evil man from lying on their daughter, right? Go ahead. What was it?
And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hateth her. And lo, he hath given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid. And yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity.
Mm-hmm.
And they shall spread the cloth before the elders.
So
of
what
the
is
city.
the tokens of the virginity? Go ahead.
And the elders of the city shall
And they shall.
Well, you asked what the token was.
Yeah, they're explaining what the token is. It's in the end of 17, where it says, and they.
And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city.
Right, and that's what the token of virginity is. It's the same cloth in which she laid on when they engaged in sex for the first time, right? Because when you engage with a woman, she bleeds and so on and so forth. It bleeds on the cloth, and that cloth remains with the parents just in case the situation ever occurs, right? So now this is the whole part. This is the part Christians forget. Because they don't know, because they don't read the Old Testament, right? Minute they start talking about Christ, they go straight to the New Testament, and then that's it, they close the book. They don't even go to Revelations, right? So that's why they don't understand this Hebraic culture or background information. But for us, we're Hebrew Israelites, and we take this thing very seriously. So when we read this, we look into context. We go by precept upon precept because the precept is there. There's never you're going to read something in the scriptures and you can't add a precept to it. It's there, right? So this is things that Joseph is thinking about. Damn, I can't have no token of virginity. Damn, she's going to have a child. Damn. All these things is coming to his mind.
Putting her away privately.
Right.
It's not divorcing her. It's hiding her
It's hiding her. Right.
until after she has a baby and stuff.
Jake does that today. Jake, Jake does that today. You know, let's just take this quick trip real quick. We're going to be away for a couple months. Go ahead and read that. Okay, let's go back to Matthew. Don't worry, this thing isn't turning into a virgin birth class. But what I will say is that we're going to finish the book of Matthew chapter 1. We'll finish off the rest of the chapter. And then in the future, we may return to this verse. So because it's going to be come up in Luke as well. It's going to come up in Luke as well. So we're going to come back to it anyway. Right? So let's go ahead and finish that.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
And she shall bring forth a son, and shall call his name Yahushai, for he shall save his people from their sins.
Right. And see, first chapter in the Bible, first chapter in the book of Matthew, the New Testament, and they never read this. They never read this. Read that one more time for me.
And she shall bring forth a son,
Right.
and shall call his name Yahushua,
Uh-huh.
for he shall save
Stop.
his.
That's where Christians stop at. He shall save. Bam. That's it. I don't need to read anything else. Close the book. Thank you. She's going to bring forth a son. His name is going to be Jesus, and he's going to save. I don't need to hear not more word. No, not one more word. If you keep reading, I'm not coming to your church. That's it. But this is how Christians read the Bible. They read it like that. Go ahead and keep going.
For he shall save his people from their sins.
From their sins. Right? Come on.
Now all this was done, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Most High by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is, Yahweh is with us. Then Joseph, being raised from sleep, did as the angel of the Most High had bidden him, and took unto him his wife, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Yahushua.
Yeah, call his name Yahushua. So now I purposely didn't touch into verse 23 because I wanted us to start our next week class touching into this prophecy, and because if we touch on it right now, we're going to be in it for a little bit, right? So next week we're going to be touching in these last couple verses from 21 to 25 to understand this prophecy. The verse 21, saving his people from their sins. What is that predicated off of? And verse 23, behold, a virgin shall be with child. What does that mean? And we're going to go forward from there. But beside that, I want to say, by Shem, Amasiak Yahushai, the water, the Yad, Aman. Let's clap it up. All praises to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Shem, Amasiak Yahushai. It was a powerful class because I sincerely believe the Spirit of the Most High was with us to go into this history, go into this information, open up some people's eyes to this information. Maybe this is questions that came to mind before, and maybe not. Maybe you haven't thought about this question before. How did Herod attain the kingdom? What happens after Maccabees? There must be more, right? There got to be something. Well, now you know. If you want to know, turn to LOZ, and you're going to find the answer, all right? But with that, we're going to rise and face east, and we're going to blow the shofar, and we're going to begin the prayer. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, man. Praise. I'll be lying to you if I didn't say I had 2 more hours in me. Let me find this. Let me get this. What you going at for you? You ain't going at. You. I'm bullish, right?
book of Psalms, chapter 133, and the last one, Kadash. Shiyar,
Shayar,
Hama'arwaf,
Ama'awad,
Ladawad,
Yadawad,
Hana,
Hana,
Ma,
Ma,
Tawab,
Tawa,
Wama,
Wama,
Nayam,
Shabbat,
Shabbath,
Shabbat,
Akim,
Akim,
Gam,
Gum,
Yachad,
Yachad,
Kashaman,
Kashaman,
Hatawab,
Hatawab,
Al,
Al,
Hara'ash,
Harash,
Yarad,
Yorad,
Al,
Al,
Hazakwan,
Hazakwan,
Zakwan,
Zakwan,
Aharon,
Aharon,
Shearad,
Shayarad,
Al,
Al,
Payah,
Paya,
Mariwathua,
Madawathua,
Kato,
Kotol,
Karumwan,
Kamwawan,
Shearad,
Shayarad,
Al,
Al,
Hariyah,
Ariyah,
Taziawan,
Taziwan,
Kayah,
Kaya,
Shum,
Sham,
Tazawah,
Tazawad,
Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ath,
Af,
Harakah,
Haberkan,
Kayum,
Kayam,
Aid,
Ain,
Ha'awalam,
Haiwam,
Bahasham,
Bashem,
Hamashiach,
Amasiak,
Yahushai,
Yahushai,
Thawada,
Thawada,
Damyad,
Thamyad,
Mun,
Man. The book of Psalms, chapter 133. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of the Salakia, that went down to the skirts of his garments. As the dew of Hermon, as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there Yahweh commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. By Hashem, Amasek Yahushai, Thawara, Thamyad, Aman. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Let's clap it up. All praise, all praise, all praises. Shalom, shalom to the family at home. Shabbat in peace. Shalom.